Welcome to this presentation about occupational therapy in the school-based setting. After this lesson, you should be able to understand the role of OT in the school-based setting, as well as the common service delivery models used by OTs in a school setting, articulate the different components of IDEA, and explain the different components of an IEP or Individualized Education Plan. Occupational therapy has a long history of providing services in the school-based setting. Practice in schools is influenced by an educational model versus the more traditional medical model, which requires a unique set of skills and knowledge. School-based OTs must apply a sound understanding of occupational therapy's domain of practice within the context of the school environment. In order to do so, it's important for school-based OTs to understand federal and state regulations, common evaluation and intervention approaches, how to write individualized education plans, and how to use collaboration strategies with other school personnel and disciplines. Some of these things will be covered in this lesson, while others will be covered in our face-to-face meeting in the week ahead, as well as your other courses this semester. In an educational setting, occupational therapists focus on helping students to participate in meaningful and purpose daily occupations within the school setting and helping them to be successful in school activities. OT is directed at restoring function, adapting school tasks or modifying the classroom environment, and contributing to health and promotion within the context of school. There are a wide variety of service delivery methods within the school-based setting, broadly organized under direct or indirect services. Direct services can include the OT working one-on-one with the client or working with students in a small or large group setting. These services can take place in a variety of environments, including the classroom, at recess, in the lunchroom, or in a therapy room. Indirect services can be provided on behalf of the child or to provide program supports. In this case, the OT works with a range of clients, including regular educators, regular classroom educators, special educators, parents, and paraprofessionals. An example of an indirect service would be an OT consulting with a classroom teacher to modify instructional materials and methods for a specific student. Another example would be developing and presenting an educational in-service for school staff or parents about fine motor development and handwriting. Overall, collaboration is a key component in school-based practice, and some specific collaboration strategies will be discussed in your skills course this semester. Under Part B of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, occupational therapy is considered to be a related service, which I mentioned in our discussion about preschool services. A related service means a developmental, corrective, and supportive service that's required to assist a child with a disability to benefit from their special education program. Speaking of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, let's shift now to talking more specifically about IDEA. IDEA requires that state and public educational agencies provide a free and appropriate public education to children with disabilities in the least restrictive environment. This legislation also guarantees parents and children with special needs certain rights within the education system. A free and appropriate education means that special education and related services, including OT and PT, include the following. First, that they're provided at the public's expense under public supervision and direction and without charge, that they meet the standards of SEA, including the requirements of this part, be under public supervision and direction, include an appropriate preschool, elementary school, or secondary education levels, and are provided in accordance with the child's individualized education plan. The least restrictive environment, or LRE, mandate states that students with disabilities must receive their educational program, including all academics and related services, with children who are disabled to the maximum with children who are not disabled to the maximum extent appropriate. It does not guarantee that all students will receive services within general education classrooms for the entirety of the school day, but instead it means that the IEP team must first consider general education as potentially meeting the student's needs before considering more restrictive settings, such as a special education classroom. Depending on the child's individual educational needs, students may receive supports and services in more than one setting. Here's a visual representation of the process of a child receiving school-based services. First, a child is referred for an evaluation due to concerns about development, behavior, or participation in the classroom. The evaluation can include multiple disciplines, including occupational therapy, depending on what the concerns are. If a child is found to be eligible for services, a team meeting will take place, which would include the parents of the student and potentially the student, depending on their age. At that meeting, the student's Individualized Education Plan, or IEP, is developed. At this point, interventions are provided by various disciplines, depending on what is stated in the IEP, and ongoing monitoring and reporting is occurring until it's time for the student to be reevaluated. While the IEP is reviewed by the team annually, formal reevaluations only occur once every 3 years. Depending on the results of the reevaluation, a new IEP will be written and services will continue, or the student can be discharged from services if they've met all of their IEP goals and are no longer in need of services. The IEP is the Individualized Education Plan, and it's the formal planning process and resulting legal document that establishes the services and programs that will enable the child to participate in school activities and receive an appropriate education. An IEP must include a statement of the child's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, including how the child's disability impacts the child's involvement and progress in the general education curriculum, and for preschool children as appropriate, how the disability affects the child's participation in appropriate preschool activities. The IEP must also include a statement of measurable annual goals, including academic and functional goals that are designed to meet the child's needs that result from the child's disability and enable the child to be involved in and make progress in the general education curriculum and meet each of the child's other educational needs that may result from their disability. The IEP also must include a description of how the child's progress towards meeting the annual goals will be measured and when periodic reports on the progress the child is making towards their goals will be provided. Also, a statement of special education and related services, as well as supplementary aids and services based on peer-reviewed research, will be provided to the child or on behalf of the child, and a statement of the program modifications or supports for school personnel that will be provided to the child will also be stated. In addition, the IEP must include an explanation of the extent, if any, to which the child will not participate with non-disabled children in the regular class and in other school activities, as well as a statement of any individual appropriate accommodations that are necessary to measure the academic achievement and functional performance of the child on state and district-wide assessments. Lastly, the IEP must include a projected date for beginning the services and the anticipated frequency, duration, and location of services. One of our first activities in class this coming week will be to spend time discussing the occupational therapy practice framework as it is applied in the school-based setting. So start thinking about how you would use the OTPF to guide your evaluation and treatment in this specific setting. In wrapping up, I'll review the main takeaway points of the presentation, which are that school-based OT is a very unique practice area guided not only by a strong understanding of the domain and practice of OT, but by legislation as well. Also, the IEP is a legal document that describes a child's services, and best practice in OT involves services in natural school contexts. Hopefully now you're able to understand the role of OT in the setting and the most commonly used service delivery models, as well as articulate the main components of IDEA that impact OT practice and explain the different components of an IEP. Thanks for listening.